morning, everybody. This is Karen here, your favorite virtual assistant. Happy Sunday. And today's conversation is one that I think is very important because entrepreneurship now is the buzzword. And I also do know that there's a lot of confusion. That's one thing. And sometimes there's a lot of myth when it comes to entrepreneurship. So, Gail, let's talk about this. Let people know who you are to get this conversation started for today.
Hi, Karen. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Sunday Live Chat. I am Gail. I am the CEO of Envision Training Solutions, and we empower teams and individuals through training programs, unique training programs that we design just for you. Karen forgot to tell you who she was, and she's the best virtual assistant ever on the planet. And yes, today we are going to be talking about entrepreneurship and
Mhm.
how we actually got to start our own businesses. The good, the bad. We may not talk about the ugly today, but we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot. So, Karen, we tried to decide how to condense all of our thoughts into
Mhm.
30 minutes today because we like to keep it short on a Sunday.
Mhm.
So tell us, how did you get into starting your own business and what has brought you to, like where you are today?
Hey, okay. So my journey to this was essentially right after COVID. I got furloughed from my job, so I was like, yeah, and I was the manager at a site, so I was always busy, a lot of work, so for me it was like, yes, I got time off from work, I get to relax, and I'm getting paid for it, so great. But no, I didn't get the company. Obviously, I didn't know that was my first time being furloughed. So I'm under the impression that I was still going to get paid through the company, not realizing that I had to do unemployment. So I did the unemployment. I filed, but during that time, when I tell you you could not get through the phones, you
Hmm.
call, you will never get. I mean, when I tell you, they always have to hang up. You have to constantly be calling because the phones were so tied up. I never got unemployment during that time. So I literally was not making money. I didn't have no money at all. So I had to kind of figure out what my next step was.
Hmm.
Right. So then I started doing like Instacart. That's how I was able to function during that time. And when I went back to work, finally, when I went back to work, I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like the feeling of not having that financial safety. Right. So that's what really prompted me to start my business. To be like, you know what? I'm gonna work. That's fine. I'm gonna work in corporate, but I also need to have something for myself. I
Hmm.
also need to have money lined up on the side. So if I ever get laid off or get fired, I don't feel like I'm stuck. And that's how I felt. I felt stuck. So that's what prompted me to become an entrepreneur.
Hmm. Did you feel stuck or did you feel like somebody else was in charge of your financial future?
That's exactly that was the feeling. I felt like, man, like I don't have money. What am I gonna do? I tried unemployment, which that was the thing that I was told to do. I didn't get no money during that time. Now unemployment did pay me back, but it was a year later after. Right?
Hmm.
But that's great. But I was already working during that time. When I needed it, I didn't have the money. So it's like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, so that feeling of not having, that feeling of like you meant like somebody's holding me hostage, somebody's control over me, over my financial state of being. I didn't like it at all. So I said, no, I have to find another way that I can make money. Yeah, I don't mind working, right? So I having a corporate job, but that cannot be the only way of me making money.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I think my story is very similar to yours. I'd been working in an organization for 15 years. It was very intense, very demanding job, a lot of overtime, a lot of projects and stuff. And then there was a mass layoff exercise at the beginning of COVID. And as I tell people, I never planned to be an entrepreneur at
Mhm.
this particular stage of my life. It was like in the future, a plan for the future. And I did have a kind of exit plan because you don't want to work
Right.
for the rest of your life kind of thing. But
Right.
then for us, a lot of us, it was brought forward early, before
Mhm.
you were ready. A lot of us too, we were over 50, and ageism is a
Mhm.
real thing. Like if you're over
Yeah.
50, it's hard to find another job. And then because it was COVID, a lot of places were like literally on lockdown, and only essential services were operating. So that's like, your ambulance, your hospital, your fire, your police. I can't police, I can't fight a fire. I'm not a nurse. So,
Mhm.
and so yes, you may have gotten your severance, but it doesn't last forever. And what do you do after that? So we launch into entrepreneurship, and then your first challenge is, over the years, you have become so good at all of these different skills.
Mhm.
Then the decision you're faced with is, you can't be all things to all people. What is that one thing that you love doing most that you can offer that you will be paid for? So that was the next thing. Because
Mhm.
find something that you can do that people will pay you for. So it was a lot. And in the meantime, you're trying to survive, you're trying to navigate your way through COVID,
Yes.
all the different things that brought with it. So I became an entrepreneur under duress. I did not want to do it. I I didn't,
He was forced.
I was forced, but I felt too like you. At the end of the day, do you want to continue to let somebody else be responsible for you at a financial level? You feel like a puppet, and they're pulling your
Yeah.
strings. Okay, you work
Mhm.
today, I'm going to send you home. Then what do you do? So it's you have a little more control
Yeah.
if you're running your own business. Have you found that as well in your particular
Yes.
case?
Oh yes, Gail. I tell you, like, I feel so much in control because I'm responsible for my finances, right? And
Yeah.
entrepreneurship gives you the ability to make more money than what your regular job offers you, right?
Mhm.
But it's all about putting the time into that, right? Putting the
Yeah.
energy into growing it, right? And you know what to say, right? While you're working, you're making somebody else's rich. You're making somebody else's castle. But
Yeah.
when you're entrepreneurship, you're making your own castle.
Mhm.
Not saying that you cannot learn, whatever knowledge you gain through your job, you can always bring it into your business if it aligns, what's in the
Mhm.
same field, right? So it's a win-win. For me, like you're a full-time entrepreneur, correct?
Mhm.
Right. So this conversation is great because people are going to get both perspective. They're going to get yours because you're a full time entrepreneur, and they're going to get my perspective because I still do have a corporate job and I am still an entrepreneur. Right.
Mhm.
So I think this is a great conversation for anybody who want to start. Right. Because I know we're going to jump a little bit when it
Yeah,
comes to the
sure.
myth, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Myth of, oh, leave your job and become a full time entrepreneur. That might be the case for some people, but I feel like for me, I can't listen. I'm sorry. I was gonna do, when I initially, when you start, you listen to a lot of
You
noise,
do.
a lot of
You
noise.
do.
So I try to do that, right? And I quickly realized, nah, I don't think that's a smart move for me, right? I
Mhm.
said I still do want to work. I do like the medical field, girl. I love the medical field. So I enjoy being in it. Honestly, I enjoy being with patients. I enjoy conversating with patients. I enjoy informing patients and educating them. So I enjoy that aspect of the field. So
Mhm.
I'm not just not ready to leave it yet. So for me it just works because it's just about making planning, strategizing, time management because you are doing both, and taking time for your business too, because you got to nurture it. You got to make time
Mhm.
for your content. You got to make time for your networking. You got to make time. So it's all about finding flexibility in time.
Yeah.
Um, I would not suggest. I mean, I say to each his own. I would say if if somebody think maybe just jumping entrepreneurship without full time, then that's fine if it works for somebody. But if it doesn't, it's okay too. You don't have to necessarily do it one way. You could do it whatever way makes sense for you as a person. And I think that's the truth. Entrepreneurship is an individual journey. So you
Mhm.
always have to do it based on what makes sense for you, right? What aligns with you to do. Some people, yeah, you can listen to the noise. Some people do. There are some very great people to listen to, but then I also say be mindful of who people listen to, who you're listening to, and that's what I
Mhm.
had to. That's one thing that I had to kind of learn through the process. Like,
Yeah. So how long have you been an
I,
entrepreneur?
2 years. So
2 years. So you
I'm
did
a
not. What
newbie.
about that
I'm a
myth? So you
newbie.
you you haven't. So you don't believe in the myth. You get rich quick. So are you rich yet?
I wish I was there because if I was, no, there's nothing. Maybe it is out there. I haven't bumped into that yet. But for me, I'd rather go slow and steady. Right, do it the right way. Learn through the process. Because to me that's more longevity. Right,
Yeah,
that's more
yeah.
putting the time work in. So that's for me. I'd rather just do that.
Let's talk about some of the myths. So, like one myth, if you follow certain influencers, they make you
Hmm.
think that you can get rich quickly, which that is a
Yeah,
myth.
yeah, yeah,
That is a
yeah.
myth. And sometimes when you follow someone and they're really successful, what you need to do is do your research and check the back end. How long
Hmm.
have they been doing this to get to where they are today? They didn't just start yesterday or even necessarily the year before. It is really a very long process, and you do not get rich quickly unless you have some fairy godmother or
Yes,
godfather with lots of
father.
money. That's the only way that's gonna happen. And you and I have talked a lot about the other myth, because people talk about how successfully they run their
Hmm.
business, not only the financial gains that
Hmm.
they're getting. And then you realize that being in business involves so many other moving parts that you may not necessarily be, aware of. So for example, Karen, you and I talked about this. When you're in business for yourself, especially when you're just starting out and money may be an issue and you can't, invest as much as you would like, that is when you realize, oh well, when I worked in corporate and I did my job so well, it's because you had the support. So, there was a marketing department, there was admin, there was operations,
Hmm.
there was
Hmm.
HR, there was finance. You had somebody to process invoices, process the money coming in, run some reports, and then all of a sudden, there's nobody. As I tell people, there are three people in my business: me, myself, and I. And the three of us, we always struggling. So, like that doesn't really come over sometimes when
Yeah.
you're following your influencer who's doing so well, because they're not telling you, well, really and truly, this is all the stuff I have going on in the background. I have a
Hmm.
team of 10 people. I have somebody managing marketing. I have a VA who manages my content. It can be, a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what do you think about that? That was one of my biggest lessons. It was, there is no way you can do everything yourself and still have a life. So sometimes when you are a business owner, you have to choose during the day. Do I go to the supermarket because I need groceries, or do I
Yep.
make a few more calls and manage some clients? Do I run this errand because when I'm not there, nothing happens? Like, so
Yep.
then you become kind of torn. And that's just a personal thing. As you said, entrepreneurship is a very personal, individualized journey.
Hmm.
And I mean, I like what you said. I would recommend to anybody, before you jump in, experience some corporate life first, learn those lessons, and then you
Hmm.
take them with you when you become an entrepreneur. If you are fortunate to come from a family with a business where, as
Right.
you're growing up, you grew up in their business,
Right.
and then that's your legacy. And when you leave school, you are going to be in that business. That's kind of different, because you
Yep.
kind of like inherit it and then you just carry on the family story. But for a lot of us, we don't have that. And then for a lot of others, you tend to stumble into entrepreneurship because you kind of have no choice. Like when you're laid off and you're a certain age, and what are your options? Well, let me try and see how it can work. But there are a lot of myths, Karen. So tell us a little bit
Yes.
about what you learned. What was the biggest myth that you had to uncover?
Okay. Do you have you ever heard on social media the two and not with the ask? Are you is the entrepreneurship born? Are you is somebody born an entrepreneur, right? Or can somebody gain the skill to become an entrepreneur? I don't think nobody's born to be an entrepreneur per se. But like you just mentioned, if you're fortunate to have a family who is in business already, you learn those skills, right? Like you and I do just mentioned, Gail. I wasn't born with that as far as business side, right? And my family, like, I was one from people that are working, be workers. That's how I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the skills that you gain. You learn as you do it. So I don't think nobody's born to be an entrepreneur. I think we have some people have certain qualities that might be great for that consistency, good leadership skills, but those are things that are innate to you as a person. And it's those skills that we also, even the people that have the best innate skills, they're also skills that they also have to learn. And I think that
Mhm.
applies to everybody in general.
Yeah.
That's one of the myths that I have seen. And I was like, born entrepreneur, so and I think when it comes with that, if you don't do well or you feel like you're not doing well, that might make you feel like I wasn't born to do this, right? I'm not good at this, because you see a picture, or somebody who's have all this money and they stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning. They work 16, 24 hours a day to make a. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do that. I'm sorry, Gail. I'm not doing that, honey. I'm not. It have to be a balance. For me, it's about balance, right? I need my sleep. Okay, I don't stay this young by not sleeping, right? So I believe in hard work. I believe, but it's also about having a schedule. It's also about having a balance.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Yeah.
myths that I think people need to, like, listen. It's an individual thing. Like, you don't have to be up to 16, 24 hours and feel like you could do all of that, but if you're not being productive, right? If you're not actually doing the actual things that's gonna produce into your business, then what's
Yeah.
the point of staying 24 hours a day if you're not doing nothing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I think one of the hardest things was learning to prioritize based on what you're saying, because everything begins and starts with you.
Yeah.
The buck stops at you.
Yes.
How do you prioritize? And then sometimes you come to that critical place where everything looks urgent, you
Yeah.
know? And Yasmin has a great point in her comment where she's saying, you can have the funding, but if you don't have a clear picture on how you're going to use this money strategically, even when you think you're being strategic, that's another issue there. And I'm glad
Yes.
she raised that
Yeah,
because
that's
one of
that is
the
a very good
I know
point.
you and I talked about this as well, Karen, but we didn't have it as a point. Was you launch your own business and you're accessing all of this information, and the first thing people say is, oh, you can use Canva, it's free. You can use Calendly to set up your meetings, it's free. And they're telling you about all this free stuff. And then when you access the free part of the software, you realize for it to do exactly what you want is not free. You
Hmm.
really have to shell out some money, even Zoom, to get Zoom to do what I
Yes.
needed to do. So, like, you know what else I learned? Nothing is free. Free is
Nothing.
not free. Free is free until it's not free. Like,
Right.
nobody, it's like, I don't want to say nobody tells you, but it's like all these little things you come across as you start to, to
Yes.
do your stuff.
That.
Did you find that as well?
Yes. I mean, so many apps, so many software. You think you need all of them, so you try
Yes,
to.
yes.
Listen, all them payments could be too much. So I think that it's important to use the ones that are the ones you're going to use. Zoom being the number one for me,
Yes, yeah.
right? Canva for my business is number two because it's the
And
graphic and all of
Calendly.
that. And Calendly, those are the three
Yeah,
main
I would
things.
say
I
those
think,
are the three. I agree with you.
yeah, yeah. You don't have to go and I mean, you listen. I believe in free, so as long as I can use free, I'm going to use it. Okay. Once I feel like I need more of that, then I'm going to make that investment.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I could go with free as long as I'm able to go with it. I'm good.
yeah. So we're just telling everybody listening, yes, free is
Yes.
good, but when you have bear in mind you might have to make another type of decision when
Yes.
free does not support your business the way that it needs to be supported, you know?
Somebody
Um
have a question for you, Gail.
yes, I see it's my friend
Julie
Julianne.
and
I
yeah.
would say yes, if I had the opportunity to go back into corporate, I would. But I think
Why?
I would more like it to be as a consultant on a retainer where, I work for you
But
and I could work for you exclusively, but I
mm-hmm,
don't really work
work
for
for
you. Meaning
you.
I just want to be in control of my time because, one of the reasons I had to really rethink my strategy would be, you remember when I got injured and I hurt my foot and I had to go to therapy. And that time in my life made me really think about how would this situation have played out if I was working, because
Mm,
therapy was an hour and it
mm.
took me half an hour to drive from my house to therapy and back. So we are already at 2 hours out of the day, and I
Mm-hmm.
haven't had lunch yet, if you see what I mean. So if
Oh
I'm working, I'm
wow.
gonna say, so Karen, you're my boss, and I say, okay, Karen, Today is therapy. I'll see you in 3 hours.
Right. That's not gonna go too well.
And you look at me like, she has to be crazy. Or you say, sure, you can take the 3 hours off, and then when you come back, you leave work at 8 o'clock, or you log out if you're working virtually.
Hmm.
You log out at 8 o'clock, and it's things like that that makes you really, consider your time.
Yes.
Do you really
Okay,
want
that's
to
true.
have to? So it's not only about the financial puppet
Yeah.
strings. For me, it was also about the time. Like you never had the time to do the things you needed to do for you. And in my case, no matter how much overtime you put in, sometimes, and I'm just saying sometimes, that you
Yeah.
just could not get that time back that you
Yeah.
needed, to get back. So to answer Julie's question, yes. If somebody made me an offer I couldn't refuse, I would take it, but I would prefer to be a consultant where I'll do whatever you want, but I will do it maybe mostly virtually. I'll come in a few times, I'll do whatever training you need.
Hmm.
I'll be the best thing that ever happened to you since sliced bread. But, would I want to be an employee? I'm not sure. However, Karen, the other
Hmm.
lesson we learned when we got severed, the benefits. So there's certain benefits, of course, to being an employee. You become part of a medical plan.
Oh yes,
You
yes, yes,
have a
yes.
pension.
Hmm.
You, in some cases, depending on what kind of level you're working at, you may have a company car, you may have a company phone, you
Hmm.
might get certain different perks. Whereas when you're in business for yourself, you may not have access to these things. And we learned too, the older you are, when you're more than 50, sometimes getting a good medical plan on your own as an individual, is harder than when you're part of a company and you're part of a group.
Hmm.
Similarly for the pension and stuff. So those are other decisions I would tell people, be aware of from a financial perspective.
Hmm.
And I always tell people to, if you can and you can afford it, try to set things up while you're working, because it's harder when you're not working. Like in some
Yes.
cases here in Barbados, I learned that you can't take something out of a store unless you have a job letter, like on hire purchase, unless you have a job letter.
Oh.
Sometimes you can't open a new bank account unless you have a job letter, because of course people are trying to
Mm.
secure their funds that they're lending you by a job letter. And some people, when you get a loan, they take that payment straight from your salary. But you're now an entrepreneur, you don't have a salary. So
Hmm.
it's not that things can't work, but they're gonna look very different for you
Different.
as an entrepreneur than for somebody
Mm.
who is merely an employee. So I'm telling people now, do as much as you can as an employee. Open whatever bank accounts you need, try to take whatever you need to take out of a store, like whatever you need to do for your life, even get an additional pension plan as an individual, get an additional medical plan, so that if something happens to your job while you're trying to find another one, or while you're trying to decide what you're doing, you just
Hmm.
transition into your personal life setup, if that makes sense. And then when you get another job, so sometimes you need to have things run in parallel. And the next thing I would say to is always try to anticipate the the unexpected. Always try to
Mm.
expect the unexpected,
Right.
because people think that, when you have a job, you're good. And if it's one thing COVID has taught us, is that
Hmm.
you
Not.
don't
Yeah.
actually, no, post COVID, Twitter is sending home people,
Hmm.
everybody's sending home people, Facebook, Amazon, everybody. And it's how it's being done. You go to work today, you have a job, you go to work tomorrow, you don't have a job. So if you're really concerned about that and looking at entrepreneurship seriously, you know, this conversation is a good one to be a part of, because there are things you need to be aware of.
Yeah, that's true. It's all about having a plan. Like,
Having a plan, yeah.
right. Like, for example, even for myself, as much as I enjoy, eventually at one point, I will become a full time entrepreneur, right?
Hmm.
But for right now, I have a certain plan, a certain goal. So as long as you have a plan, I think eventually that should be the leading point,
Hmm.
becoming a full-time entrepreneur. And even if you do want to still, like you just mentioned, maybe you could do consultants, right? You never know. It's all about strategizing, putting a plan together, and making them little steps to get to where you're trying to get to, whatever that ending goal is. I
Yeah.
think that's to be that's key and that's important. So what do you think, what have been your biggest challenge, Gail, in this
My
journey?
biggest challenge, as I said, was getting to that point of realizing you can't do it all on your own. And I'm
Yeah.
still there. I'm still actually trying to do as much as I can on my own, but I
Yeah.
know that automation helps a lot.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too, when you go into business, you should consider having a partner. I'm at this stage now where I'm saying, a partner would be great. Not, I don't need 3
Mm-hmm.
million. I just need another person. And that person in your business would be the one you bounce things off of if something happens to you. So like I'm in
Right.
training. Any day can't do training. I could send you Karen if you and I
Right.
were in business together.
Right.
I find a partner that takes some of the load off, and two heads are really better than one. Of course, as long as the two heads are on the same page. So having a partner to take some of the pressure off of you.
Yeah, that'll be
And
good.
there's a lot, there's a lot to be done. Like I love the social media part. Well, I'm only active on LinkedIn to be honest, but I love creating the content. I love our live shows. I love
Mm-hmm.
creating my little videos and stuff. But that takes time, you know.
Yeah.
That is very time consuming, and then you
Mm-hmm.
still have other things to do. So I think the time management
Mm-hmm.
and getting everything done somehow, that's been a big challenge for me. And my weakest point in this business is marketing.
Mm.
I'm,
That seems
I'm
to be
really good at
everybody.
what I do, but it's the marketing. I am really struggling with the marketing, and I know that's where I'm falling down. And then you know how it is with corporate, Karen. When you're an employee, you don't have to worry about the marketing. Somebody's doing the
Doing it
marketing.
for you. Yeah.
Somebody's getting the clients in. But now
Yeah.
you have to come up with a way to get the clients in, and you have to be consistent. Somebody mentioned it here in their comment. I think it was Yasmin. Like it's a lot of work being an entrepreneur, but you have to stay consistent. But I think
Focus.
even more
Yeah, she
so, you have
did.
to be focused. Is the consistency? How do
Mm-hmm.
you stay consistent? How do you stay focused without going crazy? And
Yep.
being an entrepreneur is a different beast when it comes to prioritizing your mental health and emotional wellness. Karen,
Yes.
we didn't even touch on that. You remember we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
So come on, share some tips on how you keep it together and not let your hair fall off and stuff like that as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely breaks. Number one,
Yes.
breaks. Take those breaks as many as you need, and definitely unplug. Right, take a
Hmm.
and then maybe have I like to travel, so I always like to every quarter I like to go somewhere, and it don't have to be. It could be budget friendly. You know, necessarily you don't have to spend a whole lot of money to travel, right? It could be
Hmm.
somewhere near where you live at. You know, even near here, I live in New York. I could go upstate New York, and it's very nice and peaceful and quiet. I could go to New Jersey, right? So it don't have to be places that include me having to pay, even have to go on a flight. It could be some place that I could just drive there. I could get on a bus there. I could, so there's definitely budget friendly places, but I think it's all about putting the time to look into that. I say take a break, unwind, unplug, just relinquish control and just to relax, because if you're relaxed, you're going to be surprised how much creativity you're going to get during that time of relaxation, right? How much clarity you're going to get for your vision and for what you're trying to do. So definitely take those breaks. Not just, of course, daily breaks, but also break in general, right? If you're able to travel, maybe every quarter, even if it's a staycation, right? Maybe changing, if you live in a city, maybe going staying for a hotel for one night, or
Hmm.
so it's always do something that makes you feel good, do something that makes you feel relaxed, do something that makes you feel rejuvenated. I think
How
that's
long is
important.
how long are your breaks for? How long do you recommend? Are your breaks like for 1 day, 2 days? Do you do like two
Depending,
days?
I say depending on the person's budget and how much they're willing to spend, right? So if
Yeah.
you right, that's really what it depends on. But I always say take a break, but it's just maybe a staycation at a nice hotel for
Hmm.
1 day, because that's what your budget gives you, and that's okay. Enjoy the time while you're there. If they have wonderful amenities, enjoy the amenities that they have, right? If you're able to do a weekend, do a weekend. If you're able to do a week, then do a week.
Hmm.
It's all based on your budget, but definitely take
Yeah.
those breaks, take that time to just relax. That's one thing I don't compromise. Even daily breaks, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those
I
are
think
very
daily
important
breaks
too.
are important. So I'm agreeing with you. If anybody was to ask me for some advice, I would say
Right.
yes. Daily breaks. So like, just get up and walk away from your laptop if you can. Just go for a quick walk and come back. Do something that feeds your inner soul.
Yes.
So like somebody taught me, believe it or not, I had to be
Hmm.
taught to take a break. Um,
You had to be taught.
I had to be taught. So what I would do is every evening at 5 o'clock, I would go upstairs on my deck with a glass of wine and watch the
Nice.
sunset. Because I
Oh, that's
have this
nice.
deck with this amazing view that I was not even going on the deck. People would come by my house and say, "Oh my God, that's such a thing," and I'm saying, "Oh, I don't even go on that." But now, 5 o'clock, I try to just even if I have to come back, just let's take a break, have that wine, and just breathe and just breathe and watch the sunset.
Oh, that sounds beautiful, girl.
Yeah, other things that I've been learning, so I'm
What
gonna
else?
share, is your self-talk. So like what I was
Yes.
doing, I would get up and I would be, as soon as I get up, I'm like, OMG, I got all this work to do today. I'm not gonna get through it. Like, I'm not gonna get it
Yeah.
done. Versus today is gonna be a good day. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Even if I don't get a new client, even if I don't get anything sold, even if I don't, like today is gonna be a good day. Today
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be positive. Today I'm gonna, have a conversation with somebody new. I'm gonna send an email. So like, it's your self talk, because it was negative, like when you get up
Yeah.
and you're struggling and you're putting in your work and you don't see anything happening, it's easy to become negative and depressed. So you have to consciously, this is why I talk about that mental health thing. I'm realizing it's not only all about work. So what you said about unplugging is very important. Get off of the
Yes.
social media, get off of trying to meet other people's expectations
Ex-
or trying to be part of their journey. You don't know their journey.
Yes.
You can't be like Gary V. You can't be like, like all these different people, because you need to put in the work. Learn from them, yes, but manage your own expectation for your journey and watch your self talk. I think your self talk is very important. Do the things that you love. For me, when I got laid off, I went back to gardening. I mean, I didn't know last I had planted anything, but I planted
Mm-hmm.
flowers, I planted veggies. So what I will do is I would get up and take a walk in the garden. I love
Oh,
nature,
nice.
so you get to spend some time in nature and just
Yeah,
breathe,
me too.
hear the birds, hear the neighbors' dogs barking, and all those other. Hear somebody mowing the lawn, and then you come back in and you feel a little more different. So it's about self care. I think self care takes on a whole different look and feel when you're an entrepreneur
Yes.
versus when you are an employee.
Yes,
You
that's
can be an
true.
employee working in a toxic environment. Yes, I understand that. But when you're an entrepreneur and the buck stops at you, as I keep saying, then nobody's coming to save you. You have to save yourself, and you have to put your own mask on first before you think of putting other people's masks on.
Yeah, that's true. You know what's? I just had a thought. I had a friend, right? He was telling me how he wanted to do entrepreneurship. He started it, and he said that he quit because he realized it was not for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He realized that it was hard, and I think that sometimes people like currently now the word entrepreneurship is a buzzword, so it makes people feel like you have to become an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to. It's a personal choice, right? And based on what he said, listen, working is easier, entrepreneurship is hard. Working, I know what I'm doing. You have
Yes,
pension, you
and you
have
have systems in
benefits.
place.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think that sometimes people will do it because they feel like it's a buzzword right now. So you have to do it. Not realizing that it comes with work. It comes with stepping out of being uncomfortable. So that would be
yeah.
the last thing that I would add. Like, why?
Love that
What is your
point.
why? Like,
Yes.
what is the reason that you're doing this? And if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing it for you, it's not. It's a challenging journey, but it's right. But it's definitely a rewarding one. But if you're doing it because it's a buzzword, then that's the wrong reason to be doing it.
Yeah, that is
You know?
powerful, Karen. That I love that to end off
Yeah.
with. That know your why.
Yeah.
I'd say be passionate about your why and believe in
Yes.
yourself. If you don't believe in yourself,
Yes.
you can't expect other people to believe in you. And be in it for the long haul. But there is nothing wrong if it's not working for you. There's nothing wrong
That's
with
right.
saying, you know what, this is not working for me. I'm going to go back into corporate. There is nothing
Not
at
yes.
all
There's
wrong
nothing wrong with
with
that.
that. There's nothing wrong with that. I
Hmm.
I would support that.
Yeah, definitely. So on that note, I hope
Yes.
everybody enjoyed this Sunday live.
Thanks
It
for
was
all of the great comments. We
yes,
had
thank
some
you.
really great comments.
Yes,
We
thank
had
you.
thanks for everybody who came out to support the conversation. If you know of
Yes.
anybody, of course, who missed today's event and you think they're considering entrepreneurship seriously or they're even struggling, feel free to share the replay link. Yeah, and happy Sunday. Do you want to add anything, Karen? This was very
No,
productive conversation.
yeah,
Top
this is
thoughts and
yeah.
nuggets.
Yeah, this is a good conversation. We definitely got to come with a second part two to this. Maybe not with this particular topic, but a different. And you said something that I think it would be great having a part two about. But yeah, stay tuned, guys. Thank you for watching for today. I hope you guys enjoy and find the value in the
Did you see?
conversation.
We have one more client, Karen. One more question, comment.
Oh,
Sorry, from Andrea. Can I answer that for Andrea?
yeah. Go ahead.
So Andrea's asking, she wants advice on how to fire a client. I would say,
Oh.
um, well, for me, I had to learn to put systems in place because at first I was operating and I did not even have like a contract or a proposal or anything.
Hmm.
So try to cover yourself, put as much as you can into the contract so that when it's time to end that relationship, the person is clear why you're ending the relationship.
Right.
So I'm
Hmm.
ending it because we were working on a project. You never gave me the information I needed to meet your deadlines, and that is why it's not. Just have your facts why it's not working, and it's not healthy to continue this relationship. Thanks, but yeah, just
I'm
have a
learning.
conversation and put it in writing. You're
Yeah.
sorry it had to end this way, but this was the situation.
Hmm.
You look forward to possibly working together in the future, whether that's a fact or not. You can just make it sound better, nicer. But firing a client is not easy. I've had to do that.
Oh wow.
And you will know, your gut will tell you when it's time to walk away. And I try to choose my phrasing carefully. Like I
Hmm.
wouldn't fire a client. I would just be not continuing the relationship. It's like a divorce. Sometimes you have to be separated and then you have to be divorced. People live after divorce. They don't die. Like we haven't died, Karen, and we're divorced. So I hope that helped, Andrea.
Yes.
But learn from every situation that you're in that makes you want to fire a client and try to compensate for it in your contract or your proposal that they sign off on. So like you signed off on this deadline and making sure that you send me the information or that we have these conversations or whatever your terms and conditions are. And then if they don't meet them and they're not communicating, well then yeah, it's time to end the relationship because it's not being mutually beneficial to anybody. Is how I
Yeah.
see it. Is how I see it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point, Gail. As far as just laying out why they being fired, right? What is the big issue that you're having with them? And just let them know up front. And then if you have somebody else you want to assign to them, definitely, hey, I have somebody I think you'd be a great match
Yeah,
with.
yeah, you
That'd
can
be a
just
good
refer to
tool,
the person. And the
if you
only
want to
other
add that.
advice I would give to Andrew is make sure that if they owe you money that you get paid. And we could do a whole other live on
Oh
that.
yeah, that too.
You find your client and you're happy and then you start to do the work and then they don't pay. We could do a different live on that. Like how to make sure your clients pay you so that everybody can live to see another day and you don't have to take out your earrings. That's what it's gonna be
Yeah. All right, guys. Before Gail gets too far,
about. Yeah, I don't want to get emotional.
right? Before Gail get all emotional. So
Thanks guys.
yes,
Yeah,
Andrea, I hope
if
that
there
Andrea,
sorry.
I hope that was helpful. But if
Yeah.
it wasn't, connect with me or Gail, and
Yeah.
we'll help you.
Anything,
Um,
any other topics that people you want us to cover, please drop
Let
it in
us
the
know.
comments
Yes.
here.
If you
And
want to be definitely. If you want to be a guest too,
yeah,
just
just
send
let
us
us
a
know.
message. All
Yeah.
right, guys. On that note, have a good Sunday and take care. Bye,
See you
guys.
guys. Bye.